Okay, so I think we'll make a start. Welcome to CCG. We are the Chichester College Group, and here's a lovely map to show you where all of our campuses are based. So we are the largest college group in Sussex. You can see all of our campuses here: Crawley, Haywards Heath, Brinsbury, Worthing and Chichester. Last year we were inspected by Ofsted, receiving the highest accolade possible, and that was in all of the inspection areas. And that we got outstanding across all of those. Now that's really quite exceptional and very rare in terms of colleges having that. There's only one other training provider, I believe, who have that in the country under the new inspection framework. We are number one in Sussex and Hampshire, and that's for sort of our success rates as well. So we are top 50 in the UK in the apprenticeship training providers, and that was voted last year. Okay. So let's get to the core detail, because I understand everybody's on the line. So hopefully if you're watching, it's because you want to know more about what is an apprenticeship, how does it work, what's involved. So the first thing, it is a real job. Okay, so just so you know what's involved. Now, you cannot do an apprenticeship without having a real job. All of our panelists, the 3 panelists who I'm going to introduce in a moment, they all work in industries. Now, you have to have a job because it's a work-based evidence programme. That means that everything you do to achieve the qualification in, say, management or engineering or electrical or hairdressing, whatever it may be, is all done by via the workplace evidence that you accrue in your real job placement. So that's the number one gospel rule. You can't do it without that. And it's quite often mums and dads who get a bit angry with us and say, well, my son and daughter should go on the programme, but actually we need to make sure you've got that job first, or we can't get you on the programme. You earn a competitive salary. So now this is quite appealing, I find, for a lot of candidates coming forward. So particularly if you are coming from the more conventional school or college route. So if you're just about to finish this year and you're thinking options next for September onwards, you get a salary. You actually get paid for your 5 days a week, even though 1 day of your time, the equivalent of 1 day of your time, will be spent in study. So you get a weekly salary. Usually you're looking at anywhere between about 200, I'd say, to about 220, maybe 250 per week as a starting apprentice in a conventional kind of, you've just started your first job role. And you gain a formal qualification. Now, apprenticeships are a great way to access the same qualifications or equivalent qualifications of a full-time programme. You do that in a really smart way because it's all linked to a real job. Everything you're learning on an apprenticeship, you're putting into practice in your job. They're not meant to sit separately. So the job doesn't exist over on the left and your apprenticeship over on the right. They very much are designed to go hand in hand. Like I said, because everything you do to say, I am fully qualified in this trade, is done by what you do in your real job. So yeah, you get that formal qualification element via an apprenticeship. The duration varies. So depending on what you want to study, you can look to be on an apprenticeship for between 1 year to 4 years as an average. Depending on what you want to do, that is. Now, if you have something specific in mind, and with apprenticeships you should, then we can advise you exactly the kind of commitments that you'll be going into, depending on what that subject is. There is never any cost to you as an apprentice. So that is really important. And if you ever get asked by your employer to pay towards your training costs, do not, because that's against funding rules. We are there to help you as your college. We'll advise you at all stages. So that's just really important to know. It is really important as well that you get a formal contract as well. So it's really important that you have that in place with your employer, because it means that you've got all of the employment rights and responsibilities too, that anybody else would in a non-apprenticeship role. So anyone in paid employment. So you would need to have a contract of employment. You can't be paid cash in hand or that sort of thing as well. Okay, and you choose from a wide range of apprenticeships. So we have 85 subjects at the Chichester College Group. As I'm sure you can appreciate, that's a huge amount of variation. So it can be anything from, we can hear from our panel later, composites engineering, it could be furniture, it could be studying electrical, it could be studying management, it could be studying digital marketing. It's really, really diverse. And all of those, they go right up to degree level as well. So you start any apprenticeship at level 2. Apprenticeships at level 1 don't exist. So you've got to be at level 2, which is a high, you know, it's sort of that intermediate study level. So you've got to be ready to take on those demands. If you're just about to leave school or college and you're thinking, I'm not sure that I'm ready to enter the world of work, I don't really want to hold down a full-time job, and the apprenticeship has an embedded kind of course with that, then perhaps it's better to go for a level 1 year 1 year course, complete that and look to progress to the level 2 apprenticeship the year after. So that's some of the options that might help there. But you can absolutely go all the way up to degree level. And for anybody who's already in an existing job and you're thinking, I might want to do, I've heard that you can do an apprenticeship to actually develop your own skills and improve your own kind of professional development, you can do that as well. So we have some of our panelists have gone down that route actually. So we'll learn more about that in a bit. Okay, and as if on cue there, I'm going to hand over to our panelists. As I said, all of our 3 panelists. So we have Kieran, who's an apprentice doing composites engineering at GTR. We have Carla, who's a Rolls-Royce apprentice. And we also have Amy, who's working for the Sussex Police and Crime Commissioner, and Amy's studying management. If I just introduce to our panel, the first thing I would say is that our panel are exemplary apprentices. They really take their studies. They've been recommended by our course leaders to actually speak today because they're doing so well on their programs. So for anybody aspiring to be an apprentice, this is a really, these are fantastic people to hear from. But that's enough from me. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. So if we can go to Carla first, please. And Carla, can you just tell us a bit about yourself and what you do on a day-to-day basis at Rolls-Royce?
Hi, yes, of course. So I'm Carla. I'm doing an apprenticeship in the woodshop at Rolls-Royce. On a day-to-day, it's just so varied. Like, it's really hard to explain, but you go around every single area. You learn like veneering. You learn how the parts get pressed together. You obviously also do some coursework if you need to. They're very supportive of that. So whenever you need to sort of go off and do that, you do that as well. Yeah, it's very varied, my apprenticeship. I'm moving areas every few months. So
fantastic. Thanks, Carla. Brilliant. And the same question to Amy. Can you tell us a little bit about your apprenticeship and why did you pick an apprenticeship as well?
Hi. Yeah, I actually started in Chichester District Council and I was identified as somebody that they wanted to train up as a manager, and they chose the apprenticeship system in order to do that. So there's me and a colleague that started on the course. About when COVID hit, the budgets all changed, and so my post was actually going to be made redundant, and I was looking for a new job, and I applied to the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. And part of me getting the job with the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner, you know, they were sold on me doing the apprenticeship as well. They were very impressed with what I was learning on my apprenticeship and all the skills I was gathering, including all my management skills. So it helped me to get a new job. In my new job, I am managing sort of regional meetings with the Police and Crime Commissioner herself, managing large grant panels, and developing and managing lots of projects that cover very large areas of the area, and dealing with the Home Office on a regular basis. So it's quite a varied job, and they also give me the time to do my studies as well. So that's been really good.
Amy, that's fantastic. Thanks so much. Sounds really, really diverse. And I think that's a really important aspect that you've picked up on that we might be able to unpick in a bit as well. But Amy is a perfect example of somebody who's changed employer during their apprenticeship. Now, sometimes that can happen. Maybe it's a decision that you want to make, or maybe it's a decision that the employer's kind of led. And at all stages, all of that's possible. So you can take your apprenticeship with you if you change employer. So it's a really a good example of that, Amy, in practice. Thank you. And Kieran, can I come to you lastly? Can you introduce yourself, who you work for, and why did you pick an apprenticeship?
Hi, I'm Kieran. I work for GTR Composites. I chose this apprenticeship because previously I was working at a brick factory and sort of knew it was coming to an end because I wasn't really getting anywhere. So I wanted to sort of sort my life out really and go with something that was going to be long term. It would help me, yeah, sort me out for life really. But yeah, ever since then it's been really good. Been really enjoying it. same with Carla and that as well. A lot of varied jobs around the factory and stuff like that, which is really good. Currently now working on chassis stuff for the F1 cars, which is quite cool, quite fascinating. Yeah, every day is different, working on new jobs, which is really good. Yeah, we're allowed study time there as well. If we need to get on with our studying and stuff, they allow us to. So yeah, it's really good. They're really lenient with stuff like that as well. Yeah, they're very supportive as well.
Brilliant, because
really
you're working on Formula One cars, so it's all very fascinating. And I've been lucky to come and see the workshops that you work in as well. And Ofsted, when they visited, really they talked about the provision. Now, if we can talk a little bit more about that, actually, Kieran, just while we're on that note, can you tell us about how you found the job? So how did you hear about these jobs at GTR? Was composites something, because for everybody watching, Kieran's studying composites engineering, which is very specialist. Okay, it's a very specialist type of engineering. But had you heard of it before? And when you heard about these jobs, where did you hear about them? How did you go about applying?
Yeah, so I knew nothing about this job or sort of industry really, because I never really understood it. But one of my friends was working here and he suggested it, so I took it up. Looked online, looked at GTR, quite liked the look of it, and then I found a website where it took me to Chichester College where I could apply for a job, and then applied from there. And then yeah, they got back to me within a few days and then got me interview and everything. But yeah, it was really cool, really easy setup. But yeah, fantastic. Really happy I did it.
Thanks, Kieran. And I think it's really important, while we're talking about the roles at GTR, now that was a project that we worked on at CCG with GTR for a number of months, actually. We were advising the HR team there about what was involved with apprenticeships. Now, if we've got anybody on the line who's actually an employer, so maybe you have a very small business or a big business, we can help you take on an apprentice if you're thinking that might be your preferred route, and that's why you're on board today. But we worked really closely with GTR to advise them about the process of taking on an apprenticeship. They were really on board at all stages and continue to be so. But we actually generated 20 composites roles at that time. So if you are thinking, I would really like to do an apprenticeship, all of this is sounding really good, but I don't have a job to go to, then talk to us, because actually we have a range of jobs at any one time in a number of different subjects that we can help to get you started on that journey. Now, we can't guarantee it for anybody. We can't guarantee we'll find you a job in your chosen trade, but we can certainly help. Okay, so thanks, Kieran, that was really good. And the last thing just to pick up on is you applied via the apprenticeship vacancy service, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
How did you find that process?
Very easy, simple.
Yeah,
that's all I can say really. Yeah, very easy.
Brilliant. Now, this is going to be a key resource for anyone watching, because Kieran's gone through that journey. Now, if you are looking for a vacancy in apprenticeships, Vicky's just put a link. So one of our panelists, one of our team has just put a link in the chat, in the Q&A, about how to link on and find jobs. And what you can do is start refining your search. So you can say, I want to be an engineer. I live in Bognor Regis, for instance, and then you can refine it to the mile radius that you'd like to travel to do that job. So you can start to search for real vacancies. So be really familiar with that site, because it's going to be really critical in helping you find the right post. Now, Carla and Amy have had a very different journey getting into their roles. So if I can go to Carla first. Carla, would you mind explaining about how you got into your apprenticeship? Because you were actually already employed at Rolls-Royce, weren't you?
I was, yes. I was already there as agency when I found out about the apprenticeship. One of my colleagues actually told me about it, as I was enjoying the job so much when I was there. So they told me about it, and I actually applied through the BMW Group website. That was my route into it. Yeah, it was still very straightforward. The college were very supportive, as always. But yeah, that's how I found out about it.
Fantastic, brilliant. And now with some employers that we support, with GTR, we actually advertise the roles on their behalf. We did that on the AV service that I've just referenced, so Find an Apprenticeship. For Rolls-Royce, they actually do all of their own kind of job advertising themselves. Now, Carla, I'm saying this because we get lots of people always asking us about Rolls-Royce specifically. And just to outline, for all roles that we do as apprenticeship posts, you have to be really clued up on why you want to do it, what it is that interests you about it. Now, employers aren't expecting you to know everything, because that's the point of the apprenticeship, is to give you that.
Definitely, yeah.
but you do need to know why you want to do it, and you need to have a passion for it as well. So they're looking for that. And Carla, you've done particularly well, because I know that when these jobs go live for the Rolls-Royce ones, we usually post around, there's about 20 to 25 roles that happen per year, but you get about 250 applicants. So seriously, well done.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Carla. Amy, again, yours is a different journey altogether, isn't it? Because you like Carla, were already employed, but it was more about professional development for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I suppose I should say I'm a lot older than the other apprentices. I'm 40 doing an apprentice, which is probably one of the oldest ones around. But yeah, I already had my job. I was already a manager, and it was all about you know, the organisation developing me as a manager and getting my skills up. And I would say that going into the Police and Crime Commissioner, they didn't have an apprentice post before. I'm literally their first apprentice, and they don't mind. You know, they took it on board and wanted to take it forward. They've got staff that were trained as apprentices before, so they were really keen to bring that on board with their organisation.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Amy. And that's not old at all, just to say. I think that you picked up on a really important point. Apprenticeships have no upper age limit. Okay, so anyone who's watching, perhaps mums and dads out there as well, who actually been perhaps doing the trade for some years, if you want to access training, it's a really smart way to do it, because what you'll do is get the equivalent qualifications, but you're doing it via the funding via your employer. Okay, so this is a really critical thing. Now, of our apprentices, 49% are already employed. Okay, so I'll just let that stat sit there. So half, virtually, is already employed staff, and this is just with us at the CCG, but are already employed and are already in those posts and move on to do an apprenticeship to further develop their skills and knowledge. Okay, because all apprenticeships now are built up of three things, and they're called the skills, knowledge and behaviours that underpin that core subject. So so it's a really good example. Thanks, Amy. And just to say, I'm going to be moving on to do management myself, so I'll be in your position, because I think a lot of, particularly in management, actually, I'd say usually you kind of work up into management by a process of kind of doing what you do well, and then actually nobody gives you the skills to be a manager. So actually it's a really good example of actually how you can further develop yourself.
I would say it's been really, really helpful in my management role. There's skills and models that I never thought of before, and they've been really useful in developing.
Fantastic, thanks, Amy. I think we lost the last part of that, but it was just really, really useful, because I think you're saying that you practically saw how to apply everything that you're learning in class to your real life job, and the whole process behind apprenticeships for an employer. So for anybody watching thinking, well, you know, I would like to do one of these. Now, what's in it for an employer? Because actually they're the one who are going to be taking you on, employing you. They want productivity. So most employers take apprentices on or upskill via apprenticeships because they want to retain staff, because they want to have a workforce for tomorrow, because they want their future managers, because they need all of their skills and knowledge passed on, so that when people actually come to retirement, they know they've got a workforce with the relevant competencies to keep the business going. So they actually, you know, I'd say 9 times out of 10, they do it because they want to make sure that you are there to support their business longevity. Okay, so they're really good things that employers are kind of on board with, and that's kind of what's in it for them. Like I said, we work with loads of employers to find people to do that. Back to our panel anyway. Can I go to Carla? Can you tell us about how you balance work and study, and what's a typical week for you?
Sure. So a typical week for me, obviously pre-COVID, it would be 2 days a week at college and 3 days a week at work. So when we're not at work, when we're not at college, we'll be in work, or if not, we can use holiday. But to balance the work-life study is really, really easy. Like I said earlier, they're very supportive. So if I just go to my manager and I'm like, right, I've got to do so-and-so today, they're like, yeah, okay, you just go to this computer and you take as long as you want, sort of thing. They're very, very supportive with that.
Fantastic. Thanks, Carla. And what's your kind of attendance at college? Is that like once a week? How does that?
2 days a week at college.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Thursdays and Fridays, which is nice at the moment. But yeah, obviously at the moment we're all doing stuff online, which again they've all been really supportive, all the lecturers and everything, but hopefully go back to normal soon.
Yeah. And I think it's really important, actually, you picked up on something. Now, because of the impact of COVID-19, we have moved to online delivery for all subjects at the moment, obviously. There's some subjects where it's a little bit more technical, and in the gaps in between lockdowns, we went back to college, so we reopened. But I just want to assure everybody watching that actually there's been no discontinuation of any subjects. We've moved to a virtual learning environment. All of that is very similar to kind of what we're doing now. And our tutors have really kind of taken on board how to run a virtual classroom. So huge steps for us as a college, and our learners have given us really positive feedback about that experience too. I'd like to go to Kieran next, just to pick up on that a little bit. Kieran, can you tell us about your experience with COVID-19? Because I know that we were discussing how that did impact at GTR, but in the initial furlough kind of stages. Do you mind explaining about that, please?
Yeah, when it first sort of came around, we took, I think it was about 3 to 4 months off work because of it all. But in that time, we had a lot of college work to catch up with. So yeah, they kept us busy with it. Went really quick, to be fair, but it was very boring. And then yeah, we went back to work. I was quite happy about. But yeah, always had loads of work to do, which is quite good. So it's not like we're not really learning anything whilst being at home and stuff like that.
It's important to say that if you are furloughed, so if anybody's watching and we have kind of a scenario like this again, the furlough scheme, you continue your apprenticeship. So that's what Kieran is kind of describing here. He still had college work to do during his furlough.
Yeah, so it never sort of felt like we were sort of discontinued sort of thing, which is quite good. Always sort of like we're still in the loop with everything, which is quite good.
And you've been back in the workshops since sort of summer last year, is that right? As well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
yeah,
correct.
Fantastic. Throughout that whole process, Kieran, have you felt supported by the college? You know, I mean, I know you have an in-house trainer as well as the tutor at the college, don't you? So how do you find that?
Yeah, they're all very good. They're all very helpful. Steve's a very good teacher. He always helps us with our work. Even if we are a little bit unsure with things, they'll always help us or give us a little hand or whatever, which is quite good. But yeah, everyone's supportive. Jeff, who's our trainee teacher, he's very good. Got a lot of knowledge. He's been there since he was, I think he's been doing it since he was about 15, I think. So yeah, he's got a lot of knowledge with all of this stuff, which is quite good. So I can go to him with any help.
Brilliant. And it's also important to say that you always get an apprentice coach, an assessor as well. So there's all of these roles at the college there to support you, to make sure that you're fully supported, not just in the subject that you're studying, but just generally if you've got anything going on that you need extra help with. We have support services. We have Progression Plus team who will help you with any aspect of kind of where to next. So once you come to the end of your apprenticeship, and even pastoral support. We've got counselling at the college. So if you become a CCG apprentice or any other type of course learner, you can access all of these facilities because we've got the infrastructure to support you in a 360 kind of way. Thanks, Kieran, for that.
No worries.
I'd like to learn next about what next for all of you, because it all sounds very inspiring. So let me go to Amy first. So Amy, what do you plan to do after your apprenticeship? Once you've achieved your qualification, what's next for you?
I'm either going to be looking at doing an ILM 7, so I'm at ILM 5 at the moment, and I think ILM 7 is equal to a degree level then. So I've already... Master's degree. Yeah, master's. So I've already got a degree anyway, so I've got working at another degree and then looking at doing master's level. So I'll be either doing that or doing some more training in program management, which is sort of one up from project management. And my boss sees me applying for any manager jobs that are coming up within the organisation as well. So hopefully onwards and upwards.
Thanks, Amy. And I think that's a really important point that Amy's outlined there. Now, we referenced earlier, they're all different levels, but Amy's actually doing a higher national degree at the moment in management, and obviously can progress on to, you know, master's degree levels. So you can go right up to very high level programs under apprenticeship study. So it means that you don't have to go to university for many subjects. If you want to look for your subject of area of interest, go on to the Institute for Apprenticeships and click on the Apprenticeship Standard tab. Under there will be every single apprenticeship that you could ever imagine studying. I think there's thousands on there. Now, we obviously only offer about 85 of them, but if you find something that's a little bit more obscure, we've had all sorts of different inquiries, but actually you can see on there, is it possible via an apprenticeship? And if it is, a lot of people prefer that to going down the conventional university route, because actually you can progress quicker because all of your study is embedded into your work. And so we can see sometimes that people progress quicker because of that reason, because actually your foot's in the door with that business and you'll move up quicker. Not only have you got the qualification, which is equivalent to university, but actually you've got a CV with experience on it too. So it's a really powerful combo. Brilliant. Thanks, Amy, for that. Carla, would you recommend an apprenticeship and why?
Oh, 100% recommend it. It's just so interesting all the time, especially if you find what you enjoy doing. It's definitely good to do. I think I was so surprised by the side of college for me, because I actually started to enjoy it more than work. I was just like going there and learning, and especially for me, I'm working with my hands, which I, much prefer. And before I was in retail, and I had no idea, that I liked something like this. So yeah, 100% recommend it. For me, it's the best route forward. Amazing.
Thanks so much, Carla. Brilliant. I feel really inspired by all of you, actually. And Kieran, last but not least, what advice would you give to those listening? What advice would you give about what they do next?
Don't really worry about the money side of things, because I first worried about the money, going from getting a lot more than I would now. But yeah, don't worry about the money, because in the long term, it's going to work out a lot better for you, which I realise now, which I'm a lot happier about, because I was a bit weary before. But yeah, I'm definitely happy I've chosen this route, which is really good.
Brilliant. Thanks. Yeah. Now, what I would say on that's a really good point that you raised there, is that the minimum wage for an apprentice is £4.15 per hour. However, a lot of our employers go above that. So just to kind of set that expectation. Now, if you've come in the route that Amy and Carla may have, and you're an existing staff member, you don't need to change your salary. Okay, so you don't need to change that. So that can stay the same. If you are coming in for a more kind of conventional apprenticeship route, so coming straight from school or college, then I would say that you're going to be nearer to that £4.15 per hour. Some industries pay a little bit closer to that than others. So in trades such as hairdressing, retail, as you said earlier, Carla, they tend to go towards the national minimum wage for apprentices, which is that £4.15. It usually goes up with all other minimum wages around April sort of time. However, a lot do pay more, and as Kieran's rightly identified, it's about a longer term career goal. So actually, even if you are kind of doing a full-time job at the moment, you're thinking, actually, this is not where I want my career to be, it's a great way to retrain. So actually, for somebody who's maybe in a position where actually you're thinking, I'm not getting fulfillment out of my role, I'd like to retrain as an retrain, but I know that I don't have any relevant skills or experience. Sometimes we actually have seen people in their 40s, maybe in 50s, who come back to do an apprenticeship because they address that they don't have any experience or knowledge in that area, so they retrain via apprenticeships too. Brilliant. To our panelists, thank you ever so much. I think you've described it way better than I ever could have on my own, so my sincere thank yous for being our panelists. I know that you're going to hang on the line for a bit longer.
Yep.
And yeah, thank you so much, and help with the Q&A if you can, because there might be one that's directly for each of you. I'll just summarise now in the final bits of our presentation. So we'll, I know we've heard superbly from Carla, Kieran, and Amy about the process with their employers, but this will just give you a bit of an overview of the range of employers we do work with at the college group. We work with in excess of 1,000 employers per year. So really do speak to us if you're thinking, I don't have an employer, I really want to do this, but I don't know what to do next. We will advise you, okay? Because we've got good foots into a lot of these companies, and we work really closely with them to make sure that they give really thorough and you know, quality training to their apprentices. So we're just going to summarize what you can do. Okay, so if you're in the boat where you're thinking, I don't have an employer, how do I go about getting this secured? Because as I said from the outlet, you've got to have the employer. So search vacancies online. Okay, Vicky has already put the link to that, so you can find that in Find an Apprenticeship. Okay, so you can search what's really out there right now. You can approach potential employers directly. Employers find that fantastic because it shows a really proactive attitude and taking responsibility. What I would say is make sure you've got your CV ready. We have a Progression Plus team as well at the college. If you want links to them, just drop in a message to us in the Q&A. We will give you one-to-one support after this if you so wish, so that we can give you the right advice and guidance. But approach employers that you'd like to work for, because actually they really see that as a positive. If you are kind of going to them saying, would you take me on as an apprentice? Now, if you're already working in somewhere, say a garage or a salon or something, and you're working on a Saturday, say, you can convert that work experience into an apprenticeship employment. Okay, we can help with the discussions with your employer. So if you say to them, would you take me on as an apprentice? I really would like to get my qualification. I'd like to stay in this company. We can go in and have those discussions with the employer about what's involved for them. So get in touch with us if you are in that position. And volunteering as well. So volunteer, because actually it's really important that you know what you want to do and why you want to do it. Remember the stats I said around Carla's job, you know, 250 applicants, 25 roles. So it's competitive. Yeah, it really is competitive in apprenticeships. It's as competitive as a normal job. And trust me, going for any job interview is always tough. So don't be daunted by that. You know, they're not expecting you to know everything, particularly in an apprenticeship role. They just want to see that you're keen and eager. And by saying that you've volunteered and that actually you've experienced it, will put you ahead of the rest, because it shows that you've taken it seriously already. Ask family and friends, because you never know who knows who, and you know, mum's best friend's, you know, sister might own a company that you might go and work in. So actually look at your own network and think, is there an opportunity within that? And, you know, as I said, if you are currently employed, speak to them. And I'd probably say that particularly in light of those who are maybe been working for some time. If you're now thinking, oh, I never knew that apprenticeships could do that, because trust me, a lot of people don't know that. You have those discussions. If you want to actually, if you've always wanted to access some advanced higher qualifications, speak to your employer and say, is this something you'd support? A lot of businesses have a fund that's mandatory from the government that they need to use to invest in staff, and they can only do it via apprenticeship training. So have those initial discussions and then get us in to help with the rest. This is a snapshot of some actual jobs that we have live on the apprenticeship vacancies site at the moment. This is just with us at the Chichester College Group, and you can see the lead college in the college column there. You can see the closing dates, so we are very close to some of them closing. If this is looking like something you want to do, act now. They're live, they're out there, they have salaries attached, you can find all of the core detail. Vicky has put that link in our chat. You can go on there, set up an account, and you can also get job notifications for new opportunities that match your search engine. Okay. And remember, these are the other things that perhaps we haven't covered as much today. Now, maths and English is required. I expect this will prompt a lot of questions in the Q&A. It may have already have. Maths and English are required. Now, if you don't achieve them at school, you will do them as functional skills as part of your apprenticeship. Okay, if you achieve them, if you're a more mature apprentice or an existing already employed and you achieved them years ago, they still are valid, but you have to have evidence. So you have to get the certificate. So it might mean dusting them off from the loft or whatever. So you've got to make sure you get them. If you are if you're thinking, I'm not going to get my GCSE results at C grade or level 4 and above, and then speak to us, because it will depend on the program that you have. Some of our standards, our apprenticeship courses, have, and they're called standards, that's what an apprenticeship is called, it's the course that you'll do. It's a prerequisite, meaning you have to have that at C grade or above before you join, but not all of them. So it really will depend on your specific one, and we can advise you one-to-one according to what you need in advance. If you don't have them, don't worry, we have other avenues that you can go down to get that achieved before you can move on to the apprenticeship. You can't have a higher level qualification, so that's a level 4, that's where it becomes higher level study in the same or similar subject. Okay, so that's just one to bear in mind. We can advise you one-to-one if you are concerned about that. You must have that contract of employment. It must be a formal contract of employment. It can't be an arrangement that you have with your employer where they'll pay you cash in hand. It does not work that way. It has to be a formal contract. It does mean that you are protected in terms of your rights as an employee, but it also means you've got your key responsibilities as well. So, you know, you've got to work in line with those, what the employer's asking, and you've got to be employment ready. You know, you've got to be ready to take that big leap into the working world, because it's very different to school. Okay. And remember that the employer chooses the successful applicant, not us as a college. We ensure that you're at the right operating level to go on to that study program. And we sometimes make recommendations for either lower level or a higher level if we think that actually you need more challenge. We will work with the employer to do that. But, you know, the employer really is the custodian of if you go ahead on this program in the main. And employability, as I said, is key. You are entering the world of work. Thank you, Navpreet. So what can we do? So you can use our Progression Plus to get you ready for all of this. There's a lot to take in today. What else can we do? We can register with the National Apprenticeship Service online and stay in touch with us. So what we'll do is we will send you an email after this saying thanks for coming along. And if you want to receive more information, we can, just let us know, and we are here to help. If we put our email address, I think that's coming up now, in just a moment, but we'll put our email address into the chat box, into the Q&A, so that actually you can just copy and paste that, send us an email, and one of the team will get back in touch and we can give you that one-to-one support. So in summary, we've heard a lot, we've taken in a lot. Hopefully you're still all with us and enjoying it. Why choose an apprenticeship? Earn while you learn. Okay, it's an embedded way to get the qualification and get experience. You gain relevant work experience. You avoid student loans and debts, because remember, an apprentice never pays for the course. You accelerate your career opportunities because you're already working in that business and you're more likely to get those progression routes. It's a route to university, so you can still go on to university after if you still want to do that. And step closer to your dream job. I would actually change that and say you're already in your dream job as well. So you're already kind of making that happen. Now, here's the way to get in touch with us, and please do. Our mission statement across the Chichester College Group is to change lives through learning. One of the most rewarding aspects of my role is to create jobs along with my team, and we take great pride in kind of being able to kind of, put these out into the world, and people go into those opportunities and become really successful professionals, as you've seen with our panelists. So get in touch if this sounds like it's right for you. But what I'm going to do is now open up questions from our team members who are on hand and who've been helping with the Q&A. So Terry, have we had any questions that we haven't covered elsewhere?
I believe we've had at least one, which was I had a student asking they're concerned about possibly about their grades going into an apprenticeship,
Okay.
and how that would work.
Yep. Okay. So for that individual and for anybody else also in that same boat, I'd say make contact with us on a one-to-one basis. Drop us an email to the apprenticeships@chigroup.ac.uk email address. We will come back to you just to understand what it is you've got and what it is you want to do, because for some of our programs, like I said, you don't necessarily need the C grade as a starter, but you absolutely will do it as part of your program. We always recommend getting that in advance, so that's the level 4 or C equivalent. Obviously this year is predictive, so you'll probably know a little bit earlier kind of where you're probably going to come out in terms of the predictive grades. so we can help you right now to get that process underway so you can understand what options are available. Terry, are there any other questions?
I think most of them have been covered.
Okay.
Yes, I don't think there's any more that haven't been covered.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, thank you once again to our panelists for joining us. I know there's a lot of links in the Q&A, so please make sure you take advantage of them. Thank you ever so much for everybody who's listened today. We really hope that you found it useful. And we look forward to welcoming you, whatever your next training choice is, at the CCG imminently. Thank you ever so much.